There's no place like home. This is the focus group.
They're all business, except when they're not. It's the Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Focus Group. Tim Bennett here, as always, with my good friend and co-host, Mr. John T. Nash, up in the great state of New York, where we are the Focus Group. We come to you every Wednesday. If you go to our website, focusgroupradio.com, you can find all of our media there. You could also download it as well. And you'll also find our podcast there, which is TFG Unbuttoned, which is released every Tuesday. It's 20 minutes, get in, get out. And you'll also see our sponsors there. One of our continuous sponsors here is Deep Discount, and we appreciate their support of us. You'll find them and our other sponsors on the right-hand side. Click on them and start shopping away. How are you, Mr. Nash?
I'm good. And could I ask you something about the origin of a joke? You just said part of a line that actually belongs to a broader story, which was get in, get out. And it was some woman who didn't want her hair messed up, and
yeah, that was. I wish I could remember her name now, but I could see her face. She was I handled auto shows earlier on in my career at Subaru, and there was a woman who was right out of central casting from the kind of 50s, 60s car culture. But this was the 90s, and she was in charge of hiring all the models for a number of probably 20 car companies across the country. And then they were now called product specialists. They were no longer models, so they were no longer women in these crazy getups. But she would sit there, make your head red, come back. The client says you can come, but you got to have red hair. Or the client says you can do this. Or why didn't you tell me you were pregnant? You can't be on the show floor. And but I ended up, I would hire some of those folks because I thought that's what America looks like. So anyway, she had talked about she was going to Nashville with another woman, and they wanted to go shopping. And she said, she says, I met my husband there. He was on a business trip. She was from Georgia, and she was living in Detroit. But she said, I met my husband in Nashville, and I had just got my hair done, and I wanted to go shop, and he wanted to have sex. So I said, all right, get it up, get it in, get it out, and don't mess up my hair.
That's the line.
Yeah, get it up, get it in, get it out, don't mess up my hair.
And there's some other line I remember about someone's face being done up by the numbers. That could be from a TV show or a movie, but her face was done up by the numbers. Her hair was jacked to Jesus, and her face was done up by the numbers.
My friend Chris, if you see a woman walking on Spruce Street in a fur coat and her hair boofed to Jesus, keep quiet. That's my mama. But I was watching an old episode of Frasier the other day, and I burst out laughing. And I never watched it when it was on.
Well, no, you're watching it now, as I recall, and you love it, right?
Well, there was an opera guy, some famous opera conductor came in, and Frasier and Niles were falling all over the guy, and that's when Roz says to him, did you find any polyps? And I just thought that was hilarious, but I don't know if I told you that one before. I might have. But I love that.
See, the thing about popular TV, like when some of these shows where everybody was watching it,
right?
My brain was like, I don't want to watch it because everybody's watching it,
right?
But then you rediscover it later, right?
I rediscovered something. So Richard wanted, he was a huge Sex and the City fan. I don't think I've ever watched one episode. Did you watch Sex and the City?
We loved it when it was originally
mandatory
HBO.
New Yorker watching, I think.
Yeah.
Manola Blahniks and the Magnolia.
Uh-huh.
So they had this new episode or this new series out, and then it happened or whatever it's called. I don't even know the name of it.
And there it was or something.
Something like that. Yeah. So, like you with the iPad at the time, have you ever seen the new iPad? Did you like the new iPad? Did you see somebody get an iPad? My friends have an iPad. Remember that you walked me down the plank for an iPad.
The primrose path.
Right, now I can't live without it. So Richard's walking me down the HBO path because I won't pay extra for cable. So finally I had it. And I said, go buy it. Get on and buy the $14.99 package. Well, we could do $9.99. I said, no, if you're going to do it for $5 more, don't watch the commercials.
Exactly.
So, but I binge watched the night of. Did you watch that?
Why do I know this?
2016 it came out. And somebody here recommended it. And they were talking, the conversation that I had here in town was about how our criminal system is just broken.
Wait a minute. Reese,
this is the
was this Reese
Pakistani.
Ansari?
I don't know.
He
This is the
drives his
Pakistani guy
cab,
takes
his dad's cab or
right,
something, and he
and a
hooks up with
woman's
a
murdered.
woman.
Right. Yeah.
He's framed, or basically he's fingered.
He's framed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or not framed, but he's accused
He's a
because
victim of this justice system. He
right.
was the wrong place at the wrong time.
And then
Yeah.
to see how he had to survive at Rikers Island and what you had to do,
Uh-huh.
and I'm sure a lot of it was very, very close to truth in terms of Rikers Island. But it was fascinating because I just couldn't imagine, and you could just
No.
see the struggles people have within our legal system if you're not somebody of privilege or you're the other. And
Yeah.
this family was immigrant family, and they were Muslim, and so it was all of the other, things that would come with what people's perceptions are. So I actually enjoyed it, and then I started watching on Apple TV Tehran.
I heard about this. How was it?
Here's my deal with a lot of these shows. I think they do great developing characters in the first, 8 or so
Oh.
episodes, and then it just ends.
Like Homeland.
Yeah, and that's what I felt. I have to watch it again because the finale I fell asleep, so it's quite a finale. But I enjoyed the series, and I know you won't watch it, but it talks about the Mossad in Israel and how they would infiltrate into Iranian culture, and they were trying to blow up a nuclear plant. And but it's like I always tease you about Star Wars and stuff. All these agents are running around, guns, they always get missed. Nobody eats. Nobody goes to the bathroom.
Nobody sleeps.
No, but I don't know where the money comes from. But these agents I heard that these jobs didn't pay well, but no one sleeps, no one eats.
So now that you're welcome to the HBO family, I think it has some of the best TV out there.
I want to
now
watch
that
Hack.
you have it, even if it's for a month or two, please start watching The Sopranos.
Yes, I will. And I also never did, although I was getting it through deep discount, 6 Feet Under. But, so I may buy them.
We're watching those shows again. I've watched 6 Feet Under all the way through at least 3 times, probably 2. This is our 3rd. Sopranos at least once all the way through. We're finding things in the Sopranos that are lines that anyway, you're gonna love it. You're gonna love it. And then I do recommend a show called Barry. Barry is about
or
Barry. It's about a hitman who is sent to LA to do a job, and he walks into an acting class and he falls in love with acting. And I'll let the rest go. But Henry Winkler plays an acting teacher, the Fonz.
Right.
Henry Winkler is perhaps the knockout star. Bill Hader is
Wow.
producer, writer, and he stars. But Henry Winkler, it's a fun show. And then you can watch Hacks.
Well, yeah, I wanted to see. I started watching that when they had a free weekend once.
Hacks, we got sucked in. The fact that it takes place in Las Vegas,
Yeah.
and it's off the strip, and she's one of those shows. We love it.
Yeah.
And one of our favorite things was when the woman came to her house to play blackjack, and her assistant's like, "Why don't you go to the casino?" She goes, "Oh, the casino. They all smoke and drink." And she has her own blackjack table, the whole bit. So. Yeah, I think this is an oddball kind of side commentary. We have so many apps to choose from in terms of content. There's Hulu,
Right.
there's Netflix, there's everything. And I'm getting a lot more careful about this because $12.99 a month adds up after a while.
Oh, it adds up a lot. That's why because I have them all. Well, I think you get Amazon with Prime, right?
You
get
do.
Amazon
You get
with
Prime Video with your Prime membership.
But I
yeah.
still have Hulu and I have Netflix. I do like Netflix,
Yep, we do too.
but you're right. It does add up in my bill.
And Hulu, we have a couple shows we watch
Yeah.
on there. In fact, that movie Fire Island premiered on Hulu. I think you should watch that if you haven't. See what you think. But when it comes to things like Paramount, HBO, Disney, Apple TV is like $4.99. You can't say no, and it has some pretty good
It's
programming.
a latte. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm getting ready to kind of hang up on Disney for a while because you could always subscribe for a month.
And then get out.
Binge
get
and
back
watch. But HBO has proven to be a really great purchase for us, and I'm happy with it. So
I will say, and I was going to ask you about this, but since you brought it up, I will say I am surprisingly disappointed with Apple TV's interface. I think it's considering how Apple is usually so precise on certain things. I do not think their interface is as good as Netflix or HBO or some of the other ones. I think trying to navigate their system is to me surprisingly sloppy. And
I
I'm
find
surprised by
that Paramount and Apple confuse me. Like I'll
Yeah.
click on a show and it starts right away. I don't
Yeah,
want
I
that.
don't
I
want
want to
that
go to the
one.
list of
Yeah.
episodes and then
Exactly. You're exactly right. It's frustrating. Then you end up going out, going in. But so on our show today, for those of you who may be new, we do our Caught My Eye segment, and then we cover a business birthday, and then we usually pick a story that we tell called Shop Talk. And today we're going to discuss some of our librarians across the country are under a lot of pressure due to the new cultural war going on, particularly on the right.
pressure's a nice word. Attack
Yeah,
is a
attack.
better word, right?
Yeah. I mean, before we start that, I had one story that came across today, which would have been caught my eye, and pissed my pants. It was hilarious. I probably should make sure it was. Is your story? Is your caught my eye today dealing with Texas?
No.
Okay, so I'll
I'm
just tell you
in
this.
France. Caught my eye. It's all
in
in
France?
France today. Yeah.
So I don't know if you saw this. It just came across the wire. A woman in Texas was arrested over the weekend. She
Oh.
got a ticket, pulled over for driving in the HOV lane. She's
And
pregnant.
she claims her unborn child is the
person.
second.
She said the state can't have it both ways, so she's taking it to court.
Yep.
And I don't blame. I think it's hilarious. So
Mm-hmm.
they said, you're in the HOV lane, and she says, well, I'm pregnant. If the state, since the new mandate with Roe v. Wade with the Supreme Court, now this is considered a child, then I
A
have
human.
two people in
No,
the car.
It's,
It's
it's a
human.
full person.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's two people in the car. She's got a case. I love every second about it. I'm going to do it myself. I wonder if I could claim my. I guess we don't have. I guess men don't have. We can't claim that.
No, we
got
can't.
Babies.
But when I saw that article, I did the same thing you did. And here's what I thought. I thought if Marianne's mom was still alive,
Yep.
she'd be sitting on the edge of her couch and she'd be watching this. She'd pull a cigarette out, light it, and say, unintended consequences, right?
Yeah, yeah. I always love that about Mississippi with the gay marriage. I don't care about gay marriage. Let them be just as miserable as us. Great wisdom.
For anybody listening, our friend Marianne, her mom and dad were kind of like surrogate parents for us in the way that they actually gave us all this real world wisdom because he was like the town mayor and she was the town mayor's wife. So she knew everything. So we loved hanging out at her house. We got so much information.
Lots of wisdom. So without further ado, Mr. Nash, what caught your eye this week?
What caught your eye? Let's see. Let me get that up.
What caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
All right, so we're going to go to France, and we're going to go to our living room. There's two little
France.
things here. So if any of you are fans of the Tour de France, it begins usually, unless it's a pandemic year, it begins at around July 4th, and it runs to almost the end of the month. I think it's one of the most athletic endurance events, period. I don't think anything beats the fact that you're on a bike doing thousands of miles with these riders. Bob has
That's why you have
taken
to
to
do
watching
steroids.
it. You what?
That's why I have to do steroids.
Yeah, or something, right? So, Bob, we got in the habit of watching it, and I don't watch every day. I'll watch highlights, but we love watching it because they always show chateaus and churches and towns, and the thing that really freaks us out is when we're watching all these crowds of people. They're so close to the riders. They're waving flags. People run with bodysuits on. Sometimes they run naked. We're watching the other day, and this is a very Bob thing. So I'm paying attention to the riders, and Bob goes, we were watching a highlight reel
my
on YouTube,
God.
and Bob goes, rewind it. And I rewind it. He goes, check that out, check that out. You know at Halloween how sometimes kids or parents have these blow-up costumes, like a
Right.
T-Rex or something they put on, and you see their face, but the thing blows up. Some guy along one of the routes here in the Tour de France had a blow-up penis costume.
Oh my God,
And
that's
he's jumping
hilarious.
up and down on the side of the road, and the little balls are going up and down. And I watched this clip 2 times, and Bob goes, "Do you see it? Do you see it?" I'm like, because I'm watching the riders, and he's like, "Look over there, look over there." And I watched it again, and I couldn't stop laughing. And normally, NBC Sports tries to eliminate stuff like this. They'll go to a different camera, or they'll cut ahead or something. The guy's jumping up and down. The balls are doing it. There's even some part of the costume. There's a little thing coming out the top of the penis costume.
I wonder if the riders laughed.
You know, I wish someone would ask them about this. They do get asked now and then about the antics of the crowd. So this encapsulates me and Bob perfectly. I would not notice that, but Bob would. And this got us laughing because when we were first dating, we'd be walking down the street. And, when you're dating or you're married, you're not necessarily dead. You still look at people, someone turns your head. And I would look at a guy and say, well, that's a handsome guy. And Bob, and we realized after a couple of weeks that we weren't looking at the same thing.
Right.
I look at faces and eyes and smiles, and Bob looks at the crotch.
Oh.
So this little thing that happened on the Tour de France is the perfect embodiment of our relationship, right? Like, so he notices that guy in the penis costume up and down, and I took this photo. I did a frame grab. I had to lighten it up and circle it to show you, but he picked that right out. And me, I'm like, oh, look at the cyclists go by. As a follow-up, I read the other day that there's a crew in France that goes along the roads after the Tour de France proceeds, and the headline reads, Tour de France workers have job to transform giant penis graffiti into butterflies.
Oh, my God.
So people will paint stuff on the road in the hopes that the aerial cameras or the drone cameras will pick up this stuff. So they have two men. Two men have been given the bizarre job of painting over giant penises that have been etched on the Tour de France course by vandals. And it shows two guys in high-vis equipment, and they get to each one of them. And now and then they'll come upon a penis. And what they have to do is sometimes they turn it into a caterpillar. Sometimes they'll turn it into a butterfly.
Oh, my God. I wonder if they turn a butterfly into a penis.
The fact that you have to have a team of guys go along the route to get rid of because sometimes people write in chalk like allez, allez, which means go, go.
Right.
Or they'll write the name of a rider, or they'll do that. And so that caught my eye was the antics at the Tour de France.
That's a great one. I was wondering whether you're watching or not. What network is showing it now? Do you know?
Tim, when
Or
you were
you're
at
watching
Subaru,
Stream or something.
when you were at Subaru, and Subaru was a sponsor of the Postal team,
Right.
and Lance Armstrong,
Yeah.
that was the height of Americans' interest in cycling,
Yeah.
thanks to Lance Armstrong. And we had a squad over there. Now, I can only watch it in the morning on USA Network, which is part of the NBC network. NBC Sports has a couple of ways of seeing it. I usually turn in at night for the 50-minute recap. You miss a lot of the historic stuff, but you get the race.
Is there a U.S. team?
No, but there are 11 U.S. riders that are, and then there's one that's actually doing well. I think he's up in the top 10, but they ride with other teams, but there's not a dedicated U.S. team.
Yeah, I'm surprised we don't have a team, but I think as much as Lance helped the sport, he hurt the sport.
Double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Right?
Unintended consequences, right?
Yeah, there you go.
That's a good one. Mine is a little more sedate, but I picked it because I wanted to ask you a question about it. So this came out of a local blog out of the Philadelphia area. And for a lot of people on Facebook, they have the different towns will have their own Facebook page, or different neighborhoods will have a Facebook page. So there was a guy who used to live in an area in Havertown, Pennsylvania, which is outside of Philadelphia, and where he was raised. And so he went on to that town page and was poking around and had posed the question, have any of you ever gone back to your childhood home? And have you ever gone into the house or revisited your childhood home? And so it had started a discussion on Facebook, and then lo and behold, somebody who had purchased his parents' house said, "Yeah, we live on XYZ address." He's like, "Oh my God, that's where I grew up," and they invited him over. Said, "Why don't you come over and look at the house, see what we've done with it?" So he, sure enough, went over, and they sat out on the back porch, talked about things that his parents did in the 60s to the house, added the deck, issues with the contractor. They caught up on some neighbors who still lived around the area. And then when the guy who used to live there, when he left, he presented the couple who now has the house with the old real estate listing from the 60s. He had made up into a placard with the old picture and the price of the house and gave it to them. And it made me wonder about, if you had gone back to Pittsburgh, or you had gone back to where maybe your grandparents' house was or something, would you want to go back in it again?
Oh, yeah. So in 2020, Bob and I went to Fort Ticonderoga to this Star Trek thing, and on the way back, we stopped in Glens Falls, New York, where my family lived for, I think, a year or two, probably 2 years. My mom had sent me the address and the photograph of the house we used to rent.
Wow.
And we drove by, and I took a picture from the exact spot the old picture was taken from. It doesn't look the same. It's a little run down. The neighborhood was very different. No one was home. But and about 10 years ago, Bob and I were at our house upstate, and a car pulled up, and this family piles out, and they're like, "Hey, we used to own the house before you." Or before the guys before us or something, and we let them in, and they're walking around. Oh, we would never have painted that color. That used to be brown. Have you had that happen?
Well, we have it happen. I had it happen in Pennsylvania. I never let anybody in, but they went through the backyard because I had the dogs, and it just ended up being a bigger issue. But then here at the beach, we just had somebody last week ask. I think they're asking to come. Oh, we used to live here. We used to stay here in the summer. Oh, yeah, it's a wonderful house. That's all I say. But is the porch still in the back? Yes, it's still there. It's the kind of the questions that come up. But my mom and dad in Stamford. Did you remember the house in Glen Falls? Were you old enough to remember the house?
No. And if I have a memory, it's a false one, and it's because I've seen a picture of myself on a porch or in front of a Christmas tree. So it's not false. It's just that it's a memory of a photograph, but I don't remember the house. No.
Because there was a house we left. We moved out of Stamford in third grade when I was in third grade, so I have memories of that house. And my parents happened to be down the neighborhood, 10 years ago, I guess it was, in Stamford, and drove by slow, and the people happened to be there, and asked, "Oh, can we help you?" My mom said, "Oh, we used to live here," and they said, "Oh, what, you want to come in?" So my mom and dad went in.
That's great.
And it was a hoarder's paradise.
Really?
So these people had bought it from my grandparents 30 years ago. And my mom said, still the same appliances, the same bathroom.
Wow.
The same carpeting in our bedrooms.
Mm.
And ferrets running all over the place. So it was a decent, middle-class neighborhood in Stamford. And my mother was like, wow, you'd have no idea what was going on in this house. But they looked around, and then one interesting thing, they took my parents into the garage and got on a stepladder and said, "Do you know who these people are?" And my little brother and I must have gone up there with chalk and written our names and our birth dates. And it was 1968 or 1969. We wrote the date of when we wrote on this girder. And they left it there in chalk.
Wow.
But before, I wish my mom, well, this was before you had cell phones with cameras. But I thought it was pretty cool that they left it with my brother and I kind of signing the girder up in the garage roof. But yeah, I would like to go back to some places that I lived before and walk through and see what they were like. So that's why that caught my eye.
That's a good one.
So yep.
The house that we grew up in before my parents built our house in Connecticut on Joy Road, that was completely a different home. We drove up to look at it, and someone had added a second story and another, just didn't look the same. When we picked up Bob's mom on Friday to take her upstate for the weekend, we went by his old family house.
Wow.
And they're like, wow, it looks the same, except they both commented on how the house looked closer to the street than it used to. And I wondered what caused that. So.
Hey, listen, I thought that too, the house that we had in Stamford. I thought it took forever to get up and down the hill sledding. And I look at it now, it's like 5 steps. I was like, we thought we were on a big sleigh ride.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I guess it's the perspective of being a child.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, that's great. So, folks, we're going to take a little bit of a break here, quick one. And when we return, we have a business birthday. And we also have a shop talk about how the nation's librarians are definitely under attack in parts of the country with book banning and a whole bunch of nonsense going on. And I think we all know it's nonsense. But stay with us. We'll be right back after this quick break.
You're listening to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com. Now back to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Available pretty much everywhere.
Hey, welcome back to The Focus Group. Tim Bennett here with John Nash. We are in our 14th or 15th year. I don't know. What is it, John?
14.
14, we'll say.
Yeah.
John's better. Well, sometimes you're better at the math. But I've had a couple of listeners ask us about it, like where we were, and I said, I don't know, it depends on the dates. So, but you can find out all about us at focusgroupradio.com and find us pretty much. I think just about anywhere. If you just Google us, you'll find our stream somewhere, as well as on the DNR network, if you're a subscriber there as well. So, thanks for everybody for listening. John, I had a question for you, and I didn't bother you during the weekend about it. Did we ever celebrate the birthday of Erno Rubik, the guy who developed the Rubik's Cube?
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. Yeah.
I thought so, but I could not find it in our archive. So I actually picked another one. So we have a different business birthday today.
Everyone does celebrity birthday greetings, but the Focus Group is the only show in the universe that celebrates business birthdays.
So before I announce our business birthday today, though, I will say that Erno Rubik's is 78 today. He was a Hungarian inventor of the Rubik's Cube. And John Nash, to this day, is still the only person I know that can do that damn thing.
Not anymore.
You can't?
Whatever skill set that I had that allowed me to learn that and do it, I picked one up the other day. I just was hopelessly lost. So,
well, you know what's great? You can go to YouTube, and there's a bunch of people on there that'll tell you do this, and I bet you would say, "Oh, okay, that's right, I remember." But I thought maybe I wanted to learn to juggle this year, and I was going to learn how to maybe do the Rubik's Cube. I think I need a skill. Which one would you pick? Can you juggle?
I can't do juggling, although I think it would be fun. Why don't you go for something in between and do hacky sack?
I don't like that. I got a bad knee, leg.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you can't do some of those little tricks with the kick into the bag and stuff.
And I found a harmonica. Juggling, I thought maybe a harmonica.
I'd go accordion at that point.
Richard
go full accordion.
Richard played the accordion.
There you go.
The German in him. Band. Anyway, so we're not going to do Rubik's, but in honor of you, Rubik's it's his birthday today, he's 78. So our birthday today is a woman named Tillie Lewis. Do you know who she is?
Well, no, but I'm assuming...
I never did either. So
since all these kitchen pictures and other things that, like distillery equipment that she's in front of, so she has something to do with food, right?
Yeah, so her real name is Tillie Erlock Weisberg Lewis. She was born Myrtle Erlock on July 13th, 1901. She died at 75 years old in April of 77. She was a successful entrepreneur and leader in the mid-20th century food packing industry, and she was known as the Tomato Queen. So that was her. That was actually her claim to fame. She was an early promoter of the Italian San Marzano tomato, which was shaped like a pear, to Stockton, California area. She established tomato and multiple agriculture products and canning in both the San Joaquin and Stanislaus counties in California. Her company became the fifth largest canning business in the United States by 1950. She also changed hiring practices in the 30s during the Depression by inviting people of all races, gender, and faith into her workforce. She also brought the first diet and diet products approved by the American Medical Association into grocery stores and high-end hotel menus. I never heard of this brand called Tasty Diet. Did you ever hear of Tasty Diet?
Nope, that's a new one on me. I've heard of Tasty Cake.
Yeah. So apparently there was the Vanderbilt Hotel in Manhattan exclusively served Tasty Diet food. It was made with artificial. So I guess this was a precursor to Weight Watchers when she did Tasty Diet. She was born and lived in a tenement in New York and Brooklyn, and she had started working in the garment industry at age 14. She ended up meeting a guy, Louis Weisberg, who was a wholesale grocer, and he was in the business of importing Pomodoro tomatoes from Italy. And they ended up getting married, and they traveled to Italy to try to learn more about the tomatoes. And she met a guy that ran a cannery in Naples. And ended up, the U.S. government had raised the tariff on imported tomato products by 50%. So all the tomatoes they would bring in from Italy were going to have this 50% tariff on them. So she decided, why not we get the seeds and grow them ourselves? And so she found that this area of California, in Stockton, California, would be the right place to grow tomatoes. She convinced the Italian farmers to give her seeds. She experimented and ended up growing these tomatoes out west. And then she convinced Pacific Can Company to build a plant for her that she later bought in the 40s. And at that time, then, that area of California became the top tomato-producing county in the United States. So she ended up borrowing some more money, and she bought out another company called Flotil Foods, Flotill. And then she began canning spinach, asparagus. She built other canning facilities where she also would can fruit, baby food, and juices. During World War II, she was the largest supplier to the Army for sea rations. She also, in the Korean War, was the largest ration assembler for the military. And then when the agricultural industry faced labor shortages due to World War II, she had come up with the idea of sponsoring workers to come in from Mexico and started a program to assist the farmers in agriculture. And during that, she met a guy named Meyer Lewis, who was started the American Federation of Labor, was an organizer, ended up marrying him. And so it was really the first full union for architectural labor in the United States. So she was really a person way ahead of her time. She was certainly a prominent figure, not only with the company's marketing, but also managing. And then she said she started this launch of the Tasty Diet because she said women that she had known had really struggled with their weight, particularly after having children. And so she wanted to develop a solution for the problem that she said other people shared. So she started this Tasty Diet. I said delight, Tasty Diet. She was named Businesswoman of the Year in 1951. She had sold her company for the equivalent of about $90 million back in the 70s, but which would be much more now. And the Smithsonian just did a piece on her and said there were 8 women that they did in 2020, and they said the only one in the room, these were 8 prominent businesswomen that kind of gone off on their own. They said she achieved a stature unequaled by any other businesswoman at the time in the world, and the Italian tomatoes she introduced to the U.S. are still a staple of the American agriculture and diet. So happy birthday to Tillie Lewis.
You know, as you were going through her birthday, a couple of times you said, and then she convinced them to give her a factory, and then she convinced them.
And I'm sure it was, right, this is the 40s and 50s, right? So can you imagine what it was like?
And you and I having pitched business and stood in front of executives. I mean, you could distill the story down to Tim and John successfully convinced someone to give them $1.5 million or whatever it was. But we know there's more work to it than that, right?
Yeah, well, the fact that she did this, and they said, you know, that at the time, her stature and being the only one in the room, quote unquote. I mean, I can't imagine. We've all known strong women. And but yeah, for her to have grown that business to one of the largest canning businesses in the country in 1950, and
I always love hearing the stories of women who achieved business success in those decades.
Right,
any decade,
despite all of the roadblocks.
Yeah, because you couldn't imagine a more. I mean, we're still a very patriarchal society, right?
Yep.
I mean, I hope I'm not saying anything that surprises anybody. But even back then, it was you're supposed to be at home. Aren't you a housewife? I mean, it was literally, look at how TV was, Bewitched, the whole bit.
Oh, yeah.
Housewives.
Yeah, what are you doing at home? Yeah, or what are you doing trying to go get a job? Well, Lucy and Ethel, when they went to go to go get jobs, right?
What are you doing with tomatoes?
Yeah. What are you doing? What are you making to grow tomatoes?
Yeah.
Yeah, convince the Italian farmers to give her seeds. Can you give me some seeds? All right. I mean, be like you and I wandering around, Sardinia. Can we have some seeds?
Sure.
Can you give me seeds? We want to
Like
we want to grow mozzarella.
It's like the business birthday you did once with the woman, the woman who took over the business from her husband with the slinky. And I think there was something where he either divorced her or left and went on some kind of mission, and she had to like fend for herself and take over the company, and she made it quite the success. So I just love that.
Yep. And I think there were a number of times I used to see it happen in the auto business. A husband,
dealerships
dealership would pass away, and then the wife would take it over and do many cases equally as well or better than how it was managed under their husband. So, no, it's a good. I like the story because we haven't done her before, and it popped up. I actually found that on a Canadian website of all things.
Wow. Okay.
A Canadian birthday website, because I thought for some reason we did do Rubik's, or we did something with Rubik's. So anyway, happy birthday, Tillie. So John had mentioned, and we mentioned earlier on that our shop talk today is about the profession of librarians, and how the libraries are under a lot of pressure right now, particularly with the cultural wars going on. And the New York Times had done I don't know if it would be an expose more than a story on a number of different librarians and what they faced, particularly about book bans, whether it's parents or it's state legislatures or it's just some of these right-wing groups like the Proud Boys had been storming the drag queen story hours and not allowing them to take place for kids. And as I was reading this, I just thought, I was remembering back to when we were growing up or when you were in grade school or elementary school, high school, college. The profile of a librarian, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which you think a librarian is. And they're usually someone who's kind of very, I would always find them a little bit introverted, but very bright, more of a research sort of person behind the scenes, but knew where everything was and could tell you where to find anything, whether they had it or not. And to hear about how they have come up against so much of this nonsense of people calling them pedophiles or groomers or child abusers because they've done a selection of LGBTQ books for teens or something is just frightening to me. I don't know how you read this.
I think I would take a step back before even going further into the article, simply saying that my interpretation of a library, both public and at a school, is that it is a repository of knowledge, books of all sorts, for all ages and all different disciplines, and that you as an individual entering the library, you have a personal decision you can make about what you choose to read.
Right.
Librarians, if they know that you're interested in, like when I used to pester my librarians about the Hindenburg and the Titanic and the moon and the solar system, or I was obsessed with Sherlock Holmes, they would recognize me. Oh, John, we have a new copy. There's a new collection of these stories. Or have you heard of Alfred Hitchcock and the Three Investigators? I know you like the Hardy Boys. They were just kind of like shamans, I guess, right? Like guides to the library. And in the article that Tim's referencing there, it starts with a woman, a librarian in Annandale, New Jersey, of all places, New Jersey, right? And she had heard that the parents were going to ask for certain books to be banned. So instead of watching Jeopardy, I'm with her there. I love Jeopardy at 7. She decided to live stream the meeting, and she was watching a meeting, and here's a paragraph. A parent stood up and denounced 2 books, Lawn Boy and Genderqueer, calling them pornographic. Both books, award winners with LGBTQ characters and frank depictions of sex, have been challenged around the country and were available at the North Hunterdon High School Library. Then the woman called out Ms. Hickson, this woman who was actually watching, she's a librarian, who is the librarian by name, for allowing her 16-year-old son to check out the books. This amounts to an effort to groom our kids to make them more willing to participate in the heinous acts described in these books. It grooms them to accept the inappropriate advances of an adult. And then the librarian said as she's watching this, she just sat there stunned because, is she the policeman? Is she, she just did her job. The kid brought the books up, they stamp it, bring them back in 3 weeks or whatever the time is, right?
Yeah, and it said the American Library Association, and as librarians are taught, it says librarians are taught to curate well-rounded collections that represent a range of viewpoints, especially on contentious topics, according to the American Library Association. They use award lists, reviews, and other publications to inform their choices. So it's exactly what you had said. You want to have a well-rounded and well-represented choice of literature or books to read in the library on various topics. And as you said, you can choose to take them out or not. What's happened here also, they're saying, and we had reported on this a while back, is people are going in and checking out the books and then not returning them because they don't want them to be seen.
And that's from some Christian or Catholic organization said, hey, you want to stop it? Go take the books out forever.
Right.
And we'll skip to the core of this in some ways. What do you think they're complaining about? LGBTQ books and books that deal with racial inequality.
Yep.
Now, what if that 16-year-old boy had brought home a Harlequin romance, where often in those books, for the Harlequin romances, it was always about the man ripping the woman's bra. Oh, they're all hot and they're passionate. Yeah. I bet the mother would never have complained because that's a heteronormative thing, right?
Right. Or it could have brought home... well, gosh, who knows what else they could have brought home. I mean, they were boycotting Huck Finn, right, because of the language.
Huckleberry, yeah. Tales of Huckleberry Finn.
Yeah, I find it... I wondered, because we've all worked in toxic workplaces. And there becomes a point, and that's so the point of this story is a number of librarians are quitting, and because they just don't want to be defined by people who don't even understand what they do or what they're supposed to do. Imagine you're a librarian and somebody's calling you a groomer and a pedophile. Because
and they throw those words around like it's candy,
yeah.
right?
I mean, it's just such a sad thing. And if you're there, I'd be like, you know what, I'm out. I've and it's a very serious profession, and it's a very important profession. And I know here, even in the town, there was the library had needed some funding after the pandemic, and one of the other council people said, "You don't have a town without a library." And so, of course, it went through unanimously to continue to support the library. And I thought, that's a smart. It's important.
Yeah, and here's another paragraph from this article. They're talking about a woman named Debbie Chavez. She worked as a librarian for 18 years, decided to leave the profession after a parent who met with her to discuss his objections to the aforementioned lawn boy recorded their conversation without her knowledge. Excerpts of that conversation were posted on Facebook, and commenters called for Ms. Chavez to be fired and said she was grooming children. She received vicious messages on her school email and she said, and ultimately left her job as a high school librarian in Round Rock. She said, it was so horrific to see that my words are being used as a rallying cry for the book censors and to see that my conversation had been misrepresented. And I was supposed to still get dressed and go to school every day and do my job. This also then leads into a woman who is from a woman named Tanya Riles, and she is from Arkansas, I think. She quit her job as the assistant director of the Jonesboro Public Library in Craighead County, Arkansas, in February after her library board introduced a slate of new policies, including requiring board approval for every new book acquired for the children's collection. The policies are voted down, but the vitriol she encountered online became too much. And see that little common thread there, the vitriol that she encountered online. People randomly can find your email or your leave you voice messages. I just don't remember this was a low level, not low level. This was a behind, like a back of house job. And what I mean by that is you love the librarian, but they were so conflict free that how could they ever be like groomers or, you know what I'm getting at?
It's like it'd be like running a Walden bookstore or something, or Barnes and Noble back in the day. You have books that people are going to like, yet books that people aren't going to like.
People don't like, yeah.
They said here, and the other, I think this was in Texas, there was a librarian that said that frequently the battles are portrayed as liberal librarians defending left-wing books. And this is a retired librarian out of Texas. And she said, particularly in this part of the area in Texas, she said, the idea that everyone in the profession is liberal isn't true. She said, especially in a place like Texas where she lives. She said, for most librarians, the issue is not of politics, but of professional ethics. And that's the other reason why is they're leaving, is because now somebody is dictating what sort of content they're going to curate and what books are going to be acceptable or not acceptable. And I just think it's a slippery, another one of these slippery slope things. And when people think, we saw it with the Supreme Court, things can't change and everything's going to be great. I don't know if I don't know when you read a story like this whether you can feel that that's the case.
You picked a great paragraph out of that article to quote, and that was the Texas librarian talking about how part of her job, or a large part of her job, involved the ethics of the profession.
Right.
We're providing books for everybody. Libraries are essential parts of our democracy. The ethics thing is the key. When you can have an entire political party ignore reality and facts simply because they're being quote unquote tribal, there's nothing ethical about that.
Right.
And then the other side, and this would be librarians in this case, or another political party, who does operate by an ethical standard of believing that every person should have access to information or knowledge. How do you fight that? Yeah, it's sort of like taking a test tube against, I don't know. It's
no, and then
so
the other, and you had mentioned Jersey. Again, this is in North Jersey, which is certainly not, you would expect it
cosmopolitan,
to be,
right?
Yeah, it said some of the conflicts have gotten so heated that community members have tried to seek criminal charges against the librarians. They said in Ms. Hickson's district in New Jersey, a complaint was made with the Clinton Township Police Department that they were providing obscene materials. and also Hunterdon County. They did a check and they decided that, well, that wasn't the case per se. But can you imagine getting criminal charges? And they said there's apparently laws in some states that protect teachers and researchers and for against shields them from these laws, from these crazies that want to go after them for providing obscene material or whatever they're calling pornographic material.
And the other part that bothers me about this, and they don't talk about it in the article, but as a gay man, it's fear driven.
Yeah.
Do you think that your child taking out a book, learning about that it's all fear based, and it's this fear of not being normal or not being this, and oh my God, the book's going to turn my kid, or if they have a friend who's transgendered, the dam's going to break. No, Tim, I'm with you. I'm a glasses half full guy. But lately with all this stuff going on with the librarians and with the town school board meetings, the Florida law, the Don't Say Gay thing recently, corporations being muzzled by politicians, which used to be our backstop in the LGBTQ community. At least we knew there was, positive policies in many companies. It's kind of a horrific. I think it's weird. This is not the America that I grew up in.
Well, it goes back to the argument I know a lot of gay people used to use on some of these, folks about being gay or lesbian was a choice. And this goes back to the same thing I'd want to say to some of these parents. What book did you read that made you decide to be straight?
There you
go. Because
it's
the same sort of thing. There's not a straight person I know that wants to be gay. You know what I mean? It's not like it's not even a thought. You're straight, right? You're straight.
You didn't even think about it. Yeah.
Right. And so the issue that some kid is going to read a book and decide, you know what, I think I'm going to be gay because I read this book. It might mean that the person that read the book, the 15 or 16-year-old said, there are other people that feel the way I do. I guess I'm
exactly.
not so I'm not such a quote unquote a freak as people have called me or teased me in school or bullied me. And that's what I think is the shame of this, is that I would hope, because a lot of this is our generation raising kids, and you would hope that our school systems did a better job of teaching people.
Did you happen to check the comment section of the New York Times article? There was one comment where this woman just said, "This is insane. High school," because we're talking about high school kids have the right to push the envelope, learn and fail and grow. And she said, and by the way, parents who are worried about books in libraries, have you heard of something called the internet?
Yeah.
And she said it's in their hands. They have phones that connect to a vast array. She goes, would you rather them get a quality, award-winning Pulitzer Prize novel about someone coming to terms with their sexuality, or would you rather them find the information on some rando site online, and it might be right or it might be wrong, right?
No, that's a great point. I didn't even think of that. Right. They all have phones.
They all have
access to the internet. Tap, tap, tap. It's just another hyped up cultural war. I think you had mentioned on our podcast this week. It's the same fear of trans and the bathroom bills and all the other things. Just hyped up nonsense. Somebody wants to go to the bathroom and they're in the stall. Unless you're a senator from Idaho, there's no reason to tap your foot and reach your hand over.
I'm not gay, Larry Craig. Yeah. I'm not gay.
So it's.
I wish all our bathrooms were based on European bathrooms. I remember.
I don't know why they're not. I have a problem in the U.S. I don't know why ours are like that. Do you know?
No one's given me an answer. Jerry Seinfeld did I saw him at the Beacon Theater with my friend Adrian years ago, and he did an amazingly hilarious stand-up bit about bathrooms and about why the doors don't touch the ground or go up to the ceiling.
Like
it was
they do
hysterical.
in Europe.
He said maybe they were thinking it was a stable and we should have our heads hang out like a horse. I remember the first time I was in Amsterdam and ski pole. We landed at the airport and I had to go to the bathroom and it was the same bathroom. Everybody was going to the same room.
Right.
And I'm like, this is weird. And then I realized that the bathroom was private, very clean, beautiful little. You closed the door like you were home, and it was a private stall. I was like, oh, I get it. That's civilization.
I don't know why. Yeah, for our country, I don't get it. Unless we think we have a homeless problem, people are going to move into them. But,
I don't know.
No, that's what I always loved about going to Europe, is that generally the bathrooms were, a luxury because, I don't know. A lot of people you either get pee shy, poop shy, whatever you get in the bathroom.
I just want to go in private.
That's what I mean. So you get, you want privacy and you don't want, somebody looking under the stall. Are you in there?
Tim, do you remember when Tim and I were in high school? We went to a pizza joint or a bar one time, and we had to go. We both had to go to the bathroom. But Tim said, Tim went first, and he comes back and he says to me, "You're going to have to hold it." And I said, "Why?" He goes, "You don't want to go in there."
No,
and I said, "Well, I have to go." He says, "Go ahead, go ahead." So I go into the bathroom, and there's a trough with ice in it.
Yep.
And everybody's walking up to the trough and taking a pee.
Go melt ice.
And I thought, and then there was a commode with just sitting in the corner with no door or anything. I thought, you're going to let someone take a crap? And And I came out and Tim said, I told you.
Yeah.
We're going to go to Davili's and have pizza. You could pee there.
There was a bar in Philly that it just closed recently, but it was called the Venture Inn. And it was the same sort of thing. It was just a big trough. And I would always wait to see, someone comes in, someone comes out to make sure, okay, it's empty, and I'd run in because I didn't want to stand there shoulder to shoulder with somebody.
In a trough.
Yeah, but I think part of that was part of the allure.
Well,
I guess.
I'm sure. But we went a little bit off there. We support
librarians.
Yeah.
Librarians to
do a great
well,
service.
listen,
We love librarians. I want them to keep doing their job. Anyway, we're going to wrap it up there, folks. We want to thank you for joining us today on the Focus Group. Big thanks to our partner, Deep Discount. You could check them out by going to focusgroupradio.com, clicking on their logo, and start a packaged media shopping extravaganza. And while you're at Focus Group Radio, you can check out our other media, including TFG Unbuttoned, our Tuesday podcast, which usually just has 3 stories, about 20 minutes long. You can subscribe, like, rate to all of these things on your podcast platform of choice. And, of course, you could find us on YouTube as well. We want you to enjoy this week. Hope you're having a great July, and we will see you in the new one.
It's the Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.
That was a stunning focus group.